Welcome to episode 6 of Tales of the Ultimate Sportsman. I'm John Hedin, your host. We have 3 fishing stories for you that we think you'll love. Let us know what you think in the comments. And if you have a true hunting or fishing story you want to share with the world, go to ultimatesportsman.com. Everyone has a good story to share. Be careful out there and have fun. Till next time.
The Attacking Halibut by Greg Purvis, Edmonds, Washington. I was about 12 at the time this story took place and was going fishing in Puget Sound with my cousin John in his boat. His boat, only about 12 feet long, was not really equipped for fishing so close to the ocean. My parents had dropped me off at his house on Friday in Port Angeles, where we would go fishing the next 2 days. We got up really early the next morning, and John drove down to the launch, and we put the boat in the water. As it got light, we noticed that it was very foggy. We were going to fish for salmon at a place called the Humps, but we determined that it was too foggy to make it all the way there without getting lost. We were both pretty young. John was only 18 and did not know really what to do. We decided that we would follow the shoreline until we reached the mouth of the Elwha River. The ride there was uneventful, and we started to troll the area with cut plug herring. After not paying attention for a few minutes, we lost sight of land. We continued fishing, but tried to stay in the same general area so that when the fog cleared, as it almost always does in mid-afternoon, we would be near the boat launch. By lunchtime, we were getting tired, didn't know where we were, and had only caught a small 3-pound coho salmon. We could tell we were near shore because it was only about 60 feet deep, and we could hear a foghorn in the distance. This is where this story gets interesting. Just after lunch, I was letting my line down to the bottom and could not find it. I must have let out at least 150 feet of line, and my sinker had not yet hit the bottom. I was almost at the end of the spool of line, so I started to reel in. I noticed my line was at an angle. Apparently, I had a fish on that was moving in one direction swiftly, but I had not noticed it. I jerked hard and set the hook. John reeled in his line and started the motor. We started chasing the fish, and must have done so for at least half an hour without the fish going toward the surface more than 20 or 30 feet. I was starting to tire. Wasn't the fish too? It couldn't be a salmon. None around here grow that big. Finally, it was heading upward. We could soon see what it was. When it was only about 10 feet under the boat, John stuck his head in the water and looked down. When he came up, he said it was a halibut, a huge halibut. He said it was probably 6 feet long and would have weighed upwards of 200 pounds. For those of you who don't know what a halibut looks like, it is a flat fish with both eyes on one side of its head that swims flat, making it very difficult to get it to head up. We kept it near the boat for the next half an hour or so. I had been fighting it for almost 2 hours. Luckily, John had a gaff hook, kind of like a spear with a hook and what you use to land halibut. We did not think about the consequences of hauling this huge fish into the boat, or of killing it. If we manage to, a big halibut will flop around for hours. It just about takes a shot from a pistol to kill one. But we didn't have a pistol. John gaffed it near the tail, and it started flopping around like crazy under the boat. I was on one side of the boat with my pole, and my cousin was on the other with the gaffed halibut. The fish was thrashing back and forth, continuously bumping into the boat. We felt as though we were on a scary roller coaster. We knew we had to do something. Fast. John pulled the gaff out, and the halibut started swimming in circles around the boat. It came after us and bumped the boat really hard. Then it swam under the boat, taking my line with it. Snap! My line broke. The fish had a wound in its tail, but it would survive. The halibut swam along the surface for a few yards and then headed down to return to the depths in which it belonged. He will probably live out the rest of his life without ever being hooked again. It would have been nearly impossible for us to have landed this fish in that 12-foot boat without a gun. We have heard tales of boats tipped over by these great fish, and tales of them flopping around in big boats for hours and hours. We may have been able to tow it in, but even this would have been nearly impossible. When we think about what happened to us, we realize how rare this event really was. Halibut of this size are rarely found shallower than 150 feet deep, and we were fishing in about half that. The state record halibut is a little more than 200 pounds, and John and I honestly say that it weighed more than that. Of course, fishermen never lie. The Assassin by Scott Ross, Pueblo, Colorado. My brother Jeff and I were itching for the fly fishing in Colorado to get into high gear. In preparation for it, we decided to have some fun on stockers in the Arkansas River where it flows through the city park in Pueblo, Colorado. We got down to the honey hole and started fishing. We started hammering them on midge patterns, and the fun went on for quite a while. There was a fellow bait fishing up the river a short distance from us who just couldn't keep his eyes off our action. I looked up at him periodically and noticed that he was slowly moving closer to me. This didn't bother my brother so much because he was fishing the other side of the river. Pretty soon this guy's shoulder was no more than 2 feet from mine. The real funny thing is that he was acting like I wasn't even there. Jeff was on the other side laughing at me and still hammering the fish pretty good. I was getting pretty frustrated because this fellow was throwing a fairly heavy sinker everywhere my fly would land. Still, I didn't say anything to him because my brother and I were just having fun with the stockers. Pretty soon my action stopped, but Jeff was really pounding them on the other side. That's when this guy decided to get in on some of the action. I looked over at my brother and saw that he was really concentrating on fishing and not paying any attention to my partner and me. That's when the action really started. The assassin figured that he was going to get his bait into the sweet spot and let one fly in my brother's direction. I just happened to watch his cast as it sailed to its final destination, which happened to be located in the space right between my brother's eyes. I could hear that sinker smack him all the way across the river, about 20 yards away. Jeff was mildly stunned for a minute, and I just stood there staring at the guy. I told him my brother was a pretty easygoing person until something really gets him going. I don't know if he got my real meaning because I was laughing so hard. I put my pole down and watched to see just what would happen next. The guy didn't seem to really care about what had just happened and stated that he could fish where he wanted to. This is a true statement, but I thought to myself that it does not give you the right to fling sinkers at someone's head. By that time, my brother had figured out what had happened and was coming across the river fast. I told the fellow that he had better move on before my brother reached this side of the river. He must have finally realized what he had done because he suddenly made a beeline for the trail leading from the river. By the time Jeff got to my side of the river, the assassin had vamoosed up the trail. When Jeff got to me, I was laughing so hard that I could hardly stand up, especially when I saw that third eye on his forehead. Jeff and I figured that we had better call it a day before some other river terrorists decided to take pot shots at us, so we grabbed the rods and headed for cover. The Spot by Gaut, Maple Grove, Minnesota. This is kind of a weird story that happened last summer on Mille Lacs Lake in Minnesota. My best friends, Tim and Joe, and I decided to head up to Mille Lacs on an early Saturday morning. We left at 5 a.m. We went right to the spot we found with the GPS 2 years earlier, and as usual, no one was there. Out about 5 miles on the flats, we had found a 15-foot hump that's about 100 feet long and surrounded by 22 feet of water. Right away, Joe got the first fish, a 3-pound walleye, and then we all started catching them. That lasted about an hour, and I guess we had about 10 fish in the live well. Then they just stopped biting. The sky was changing color from blue to gray to dark, off in the distance. It was also starting to thunder faintly. Tim said, "Great, this might get them wallies to bite." 10 minutes later, I looked up at Tim, who was sitting in the middle of the boat with his hair sticking straight up. "Joe, look at Tim," I said, laughing. Joe laughed too and took his hat off to hit Tim with it. Joe's hair was standing straight up too. I took my hat off and could tell by their faces my hair was the same. "Let's get out of here," I said, but by then they were both already pulling their lines in. My boat goes 30 miles per hour with just me in it, and right then I was wishing I was alone. We were about half a mile from the spot when a big blue flash of lightning hit, right where we had been fishing. A loud boom followed almost instantly. We were all praying that we would make it back to the truck. We still go up to the spot and fish walleyes at least 10 times a season, but nowadays the weather is always our number one topic of discussion before we go.
From all of us here at Tales of the Ultimate Sportsman, take care and have fun out there.